Hi, and welcome to part 3 in our HEC-HMS for HEC-RAS Users series. In this one, we're going to take the shapefiles that we generated last time around and use them in a rain on grid model. So first, in order to modify them, I'm going to export them into a new layer into the shapefiles directory. I'm going to merge these basins, these subbasins together, and so I'll call this one gold single basin. I'll do the same with the streams and put that one into a single layer as well, or a single feature. And under the shapefiles directory, I'll call this one gold single stream. And so with these layers, because I've made new ones, that way I won't modify the old ones. They won't show up until I add them back in though. They've been exported, but they're not available in RAS Mapper until I add them as existing features, and I'll pull them both in. They'll show up here at the bottom. So there they are. Those are the two layers that I'll be working with. When I take these layers then and select them to edit, I'm also going to now take each of these subbasins and look at the attributes and merge them together. So by selecting these, you can see the attributes that came through from HMS, including centroids. I'll hold Control down, select them all, and when I right click on that and hit merge, then I get a single basin out of it. Those properties have all disappeared. If I want the area and the perimeter back, I can go ahead and select those features, and then I'll see the area. Now I'll do the same thing with the single stream. Once I save this one, I'll open up single stream, start editing that layer as well. And in this case, I want the longest stream length so I can use it as a profile. Well, here's all the segments that came through with their properties from HEC-HMS. Certain ones, I'm going to take those individual tributaries there and just delete those. So I'll right click on that, delete that one. I'll grab the other tributary there and delete that. And then I'll take these other three that are part of the main stream length and merge them together. Again, I've lost all the properties that went along with that. I can add those back in if I'd like. So let's save that one. Now I've got these two layers, the basin and the stream layer. And let's make the stream look like a stream. We'll make it blue and give it the standard river pattern there. Say OK, and now I've got my blue stream. With those two layers now, I'm going to go ahead and use those to create a rain on grid geometry. So under geometries, right click, hit add new geometry. I'll call this one gold like everything else here. Hit OK. And now as my perimeter, my 2D flow area perimeter, I'm going to go ahead and start editing that one. And then I'll select import from shapefile. I'll browse to this shapefile, which I've just created, this single basin one, and hit import. So now I've got a perimeter around the outside, which is the shapefile that I made. I'll do the same thing for break lines, import from a shapefile, browse to the stream length that I got, the stream flow path that I generated from HMS and merged together, go ahead and import that, and now I've got a break line down the center of the stream. So with those, I'll stop editing those and then go ahead and assign some grid spacing to this. I'll go 50 by 50 meters for the computational mesh. And then for the break lines, I'll go a little tighter, 20. I'll give it a couple of near repeats, and then we'll limit the far spacing to a little less than the universal spacing behind it. So with those two features in there, I'm going to go ahead and stop editing and save those as they are. And then I'll go ahead and start editing again once the perimeter is saved. And then once I start editing again, I'll go ahead and assign the mesh. So I right click on it, generate the computational points with all break lines. And if you look there, you see a little red dot error. Now, I'm a bit surprised. I would have expected a few more red dot errors than just the one, given the spacing that we've used here. It didn't give me a lot of clues as to what this error was, but when you zoom in on it, maybe I'll select this. It's all grayed out, and so you need to hit the arrow key in order to select that again. When I move the whole thing that way, I'll undo that. Let's double click on this and have a look at where that error was, and sure enough, it's a duplicated point. So if I delete that and come back out and regenerate those points, I think I've got a grid behind this thing now. If I zoom back out, you can see that I've got my 50 by 50 meter grid behind it. So it has successfully created this grid for me, a computational grid. And when I stop editing that one and say yes, though, I still get one error. Well, if we zoom around and try and find that error, I don't see any red dots. One of the issues with this, I mean, it looks all right when when I zoom in on this and see the computational grid there along the channel, looks like it did it okay. But there's one issue here, and that's that the HMS delineation is based on a 5-meter grid. So you see all those little pixelated areas there, those are 5-meter grids. And I've got a 50-meter grid going behind it. So I'm going to go ahead and make a refinement region, and I'm going to import as a refinement region that same perimeter. So I've got the identical shapefile that I'm going to pull in from my basin file. This is a little hack, a little workaround. And when I take this refinement region, I'll go ahead and open the attribute table, and as the cell size, I'll assign it 50 by 50, just like the inside. But on the perimeter spacing, I'm going to make this 10 meters. Because if I make it 10 meters, that's close enough to the 5 where I don't end up with cells that have more than 8 sides, at least not too many of them. So with that assigned, I'll go ahead and go back and enforce that region. And when it does that, you'll see around the outside, hopefully when this pops in here, we'll see a perimeter that has a tighter spacing than the inside of it. And when we do that, unfortunately, I've got a few additional errors that have popped up. Now those errors, I don't think we can solve them with the automatic routine, and so we'll need to go in and make some of these edits manually. So for example, you can see this one here, couldn't get around that odd little corner there, and that's pretty common. Now I generally don't like to just add computational points because it's hard to get those back in exactly the right place if you regenerate the grid, but in this case I'm going to break that little rule of thumb and add a few more points around here just so you can see that red dot error go away. And so when you see here with the additional red dot errors that have shown up, I have to make these changes manually. Because if I go here and do under perimeters, try to fix all meshes automatically, have a look, it doesn't actually have the capability to fix these ones. So I'll go ahead and add a few extra points around the perimeter. And once I've done that, now I get left with errors that HEC-RAS can actually fix automatically. So I'll go back to perimeters and right click on it and try to fix all meshes. And if I do that 2 or 3 times, I should be able to get rid of most of these red dot errors. I think we'll get them all by the 3rd time around. So that one disappeared there. And now I've got a mesh that functions. Otherwise, if I took this into the geometry before, it looked like it created it just fine, but it would have given me an arithmetic error and wouldn't have even shown me the grid sizes or the grid cells in the geometry. So anyway, that's just a little hack to get around a tighter spacing around the outside. So with that, I guess just as a matter of habit, it's always good to look at your associations, even though we've only got one terrain here. Just good to save that and make sure that we're associated with the correct terrain. So now I'll open the geometry and let's have a look here about setting up a rain on grid model. And a plan file, an unsteady plan file that has rain on grid precipitation. First, we'll need to put in some boundary conditions to let the flow out. Now, I'll put this one down here at the outlet and just add a boundary condition down there called outlet. I could go all the way around the outside because I've already trimmed the boundary, the perimeter to the catchment. We don't really need to do that. If I didn't have it defined very well, I could make a wider perimeter and then do an outflow boundary around the entire thing. For this one, we'll just assign it a normal depth. One quick little thing that we can do there is to measure that normal depth slope. But first, let's put in the rainfall. So I'm adding the SA2D flow area as a boundary condition. And when I do that, I'm going to pull in the precip numbers here. I'll go ahead and use a frequency storm generator that we've talked about in our rain on grid tutorials, and I'll paste that in here from my spreadsheet for the local area using the local gauge data. And so this comes from intensity, frequency, duration data. I'll put a 24-hour storm in here. One of the things you'll notice, there's a bit of a bug in 6.1, which I think is fixed in 6.2, where at the half-hour marks, the simulation time shows it going an hour ahead, bouncing an hour ahead. But have a look at the date. Once we've run the preprocessor, that date will show up, and that's what it actually uses, so you don't really need to worry about that too much. I'll go ahead and just grab the slope here. Again, holding control down and just clicking and going back and forth across the river. If we hit the low spots there, we should be able to see a slope. If I hold control down again, then I can get that slope there. It's about 1/10%, looks like. This is coming into a river, though. I'll probably go even milder than that for the outflow because the river's gradient is actually going transverse to where the flow is coming in. So I'll go ahead and hit normal depth here and just give it a 0.0001. I guess it'll be 1/100% there because it's just a very mild gradient river that's tidally influenced. I'll call this one gold. This is just my precip data, and I'll hit save. And now I've got my unsteady flow and a geometry. We need to link these together with the plan, the unsteady plan here. I'll give it a name first, and again, I'm just calling everything gold, and we'll tell it which programs to run, and then I'll assign a simulation time window. We're just going to make this one a 24-hour simulation. I always start these in 2050 if they're not real events, and let's go to the 2nd of January at midday as well, and so we've got 24 hours if I go to 12 o'clock. Because I've got a 20-meter grid, a Courant number of 1 with an average velocity of about 2 meters a second will give us a 10-second time step. I'm going to choose 5 minutes for all of my other intervals. I could get a little more detailed with the computational interval or computational options here, and potentially just pick on an adaptive time step, but for now we'll just leave that one alone. I will change this one to the full momentum shallow water equation and save this plan. So with that, hopefully it'll run. If I hit compute, see if we've done this error-free here, it will run the preprocessor first, and then I'll probably just fast forward through this. This might take a couple of minutes. A real model, if I was doing this for a client, I would probably have a grid size that would force this thing to run over hours of time rather than a couple of minutes, but you'll get the idea here. So with that done, I'm going to close this out. One of the things that you'll notice is if you try to go back into RAS Mapper without having closed it, so I saved RAS Mapper, I'll save the project here as well, but I'll go back to RAS Mapper without having closed it after running the geometry, and what you'll notice if you go into the results, it's going to show you this little asterisk in the italics showing that there are no results there. So I don't see anything at all, which just means that I need to close RAS Mapper, save the project, and come back in again. And when we do that and come back in again, you'll see that these depths generally will pop back in. So there are my depths. Rain on grid does tend to accumulate at each of the computational grids until you smooth it out. So I'm going to slope it here and give it a 10-centimeter threshold for display. That just helps it look a little better. I'm also going to change the 15-meter default, which is really high for depths, especially in a rain on grid model. We'll make it a 1-meter depth so the blue shows up, the dark blue shows up really well against the particle tracing arrows. So I'll turn on particle tracing here, and you can see the flow going down and out the boundary condition. What we want to do here, though, is compare our hydrograph at the outlet with what we'll get out of HMS. So I'll measure an outflow here. Go ahead and click on that and hit flow profile, and what we'll see here is an outflow hydrograph which peaks at just over 400 cubic meters a second. Now I ran the regional flood frequency estimates for this area as well, and it came out a little higher, about 500, but we're in the ballpark. One thing I wanted to show you, though, that you can also do if I zoom out here is to import the same shapefile as a profile line, the one that we got from the individual stream. So that's one of the reasons I like to get these out of HEC-HMS, is when you click on this one and now right click and plot the water surface elevation profile, we'll see the long section, the longitudinal section, without having had to go in and delineate that by hand. So I can animate this water surface profile. You can see the river down there at the bottom as it flows into that really mild gradient, and you can watch this flood wave move down the channel. So another thing I like to do in order to see where we are and orient ourselves is to go into the properties here for the shapefile and turn on the stationing tick marks. And that allows you to see the chainage or the stationing that corresponds to the longitudinal section that we're looking at, the profile. I'll change that name to Gold Creek Profile, and if I generated this again, then that would show up as the title. So that's one of the things that we can do, make some good use out of the HMS functionality, the things that we have generated out of HMS. In our next episode here, our next video, we're going to go ahead and do exactly the same thing with exactly the same storm, and we'll do that in HEC-HMS, and then we'll compare the results, and we'll also show you how to make a cool watershed map, or the resources where you'll be able to make a cool watershed map like you see here in the background, and a couple of tools in RAS Mapper for GIS tools if you are going to do your catchment or your watershed delineations manually. So with that, I'll sign off for today, and we'll see you in our next episode. Thanks.